Since their first appearance in Return of the Jedi, the Imperial Royal Guard have been full of mystery. Who were they? Where did they come from? What allowed them the opportunity to serve as bodyguards to the Emperor himself? Today we'll be comparing their origins, training, and variations in both Star Wars canon and Legends. Starting with the canon, it seems that the Royal Guard were simply selected as the best of the Empire's soldiers. The Darth Vader comic shows a group of clone troopers discussing their future after the Clone Wars, hoping that they'll be chosen to wear the red cloaks. They claim that that's the best job they could hope for, with no more battles to fight. 5 years later, the book Lords of the Sith proves that at least one clone was able to reach that goal. The rest of the guards were chosen from the Stormtrooper Corps. The guards were given extra training in many forms of combat outside of what they would learn as a stormtrooper. They were conditioned to be completely loyal to the Emperor, following his orders without question or hesitation, even if the order were to kill one of their own. They were so trusted that the Emperor allowed them to see his full power as a Sith Lord without consequence. They were trusted to speak of it to no one. The Emperor himself believed that the Royal Guard were ultimately unnecessary, which makes sense considering his own skills in the Force. But he knew that they evoked fear and awe in his subjects, so he kept them in his service. They were outwardly armed with force pikes, but beneath their robes they hid a heavy blaster pistol, a vibroblade, and heavy armor. Moving on to Legends, we have more detail on their origins and training regimen. Their armor was designed using elements of the Mandalorian Death Watch, the ancient Sith Sun Guard, and the Senate Guards of the Galactic Republic. When the Royal Guards officially began at the start of the Galactic Empire, Palpatine specifically hand-picked non-clone recruits. They were then sent to Yinchor for classified training in many combat forms. They practiced the martial art of Akani against each other in combat arenas. Their final test before graduation was a fight to the death in the presence of the Emperor himself, meaning at most only the strongest half of the original group were worthy of wearing the red armor, although it was perfectly normal to see only one survivor. After their official acceptance, they continued in their training, learning how to expertly wield force pikes, which were chosen for their multiple purposes including self-defense, crowd control, and torture. But they still carried concealed heavy blaster pistols and vibroblades. The Vibro staff was known to be particularly deadly in their hands, and was chosen after Palpatine witnessed the double blade's effectiveness in the hands of his apprentice, Darth Maul. They were taught a secret combat language known only to them so they could easily conceal their intentions and orders from enemy spies. While the Royal Guards were already considered some of the most elite units of the Empire, there were several variants within their own ranks. The Imperial Sovereign Protectors were the best of the best guards. They received specialized armor and access to the Emperor's Royal Guard TIE interceptors. They were also trusted with limited knowledge of the dark side, and the most exceptional protectors were allowed to train as Dark Jedi. The Imperial Senate Guard was yet another elite unit that branched off of the standard Royal Guards. They wore blue armor and were publicly meant to protect senators, but their true purpose was to ensure the Imperial Senate remained loyal to the Emperor. Finally, the Emperor's Shadow Guard were a mysterious group considered to be another elite version of the Royal Guard. They wore black armor and were said to have been descendants of the Sith Sun Guard or Jedi that fell to the dark side. Their orders came directly from Palpatine himself, and they were often sent to eliminate Jedi that had survived Order 66. So there are a lot of differences between Legends and Canon right now. In canon, things are just more simple, which makes sense because we're only coming up on our 4th year of material compared to decades of Legends. It sounds like the selection process was less strict, since Palpatine didn't seem to mind clones serving in Lords of the Sith, but in Legends he specifically wanted non-clone soldiers. The basics are all still there, with guards receiving advanced training and special armor and weaponry hidden under red cloaks. I'd honestly expect a lot of those training details to still be true. We just haven't had any of it verified in canon yet. But knowing that Royal Guards have no problem killing each other if the order is given alludes back to their very brutal training in Legends. Also, the secret combat language from Legends reminds me of the coded language of another canon elite unit, the Death Troopers. I think the biggest difference right now is the lack of variation, which is fine. The Senate Guard and the Shadow Guard were both created for the Force Unleashed video game to provide a progression of enemies. The Shadow Guards specifically seem to have been lumped in with the Inquisitorius since they pretty much serve the same purpose in canon. I'm on board with the simplification of the whole Royal Guard branch of soldiers. However, I would like to revisit their training at some point. Crimson Empire was one of the first Star Wars comics I read, so I've got a soft spot for Kir Kanos and Karner Jax. I don't expect those characters to return, but I would enjoy getting into the minds of some new characters within the Royal Guard. What from legends surrounding the Royal Guards would you like to see pop back up in canon? Part of their training or one of their variants? Let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out my Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.